This video, it might be a bit more unhinged than my usual content, but so much fun at the same time. I asked people over on Instagram for their favorite comfort movies, and so I picked a few of those to get some good recipe inspiration. I had the best time making this video. I hope you're gonna enjoy watching it as well. Let's just get right into it. And thank you to Squarespace for sponsoring this video.
Sounds nice.
Thought you didn't like it.
Play it again, will you?
I rewatched this movie for the first time just this week, and wow, this might as well have been my first time seeing it. All I remembered going into this again was the peach and the fact that a lot of the scenes just seemed so very long to me. But that was before I had entered my A24 loving wannabe cinephile era. Setting aside the concerning age gap between the two main characters for a second, this movie is beautiful. I could not get over the colors, the lighting, not to mention the soundtrack. Like, this movie is carefree European summer vibes first. Anyway, as for the cake that we're making, it is of course centered around peaches. I took a few Italian tart recipes as inspiration here to create my own version of a peach crostata, which is going to be filled with a delicious vanilla custard cream base and topped with freshly poached peaches. First, we're putting together a simple pie crust. Add all the ingredients to the food processor: plain flour, powdered sugar, salt, and vanilla sugar. Give those a quick blend. Then add the cold vegan butter, which you cut into cubes first, plus a little bit of applesauce, which is going to be my replacement for egg yolks. Blend until it roughly comes together. Then transfer this mix onto your floured surface and quickly bring the dough together with your hands until you have a nice smooth ball of dough. Grab some cling foil and wrap the dough up tightly. Place it into the fridge for 1 to 2 hours. Onto the custard. To a small to medium saucepan, add all the custard ingredients: non-dairy milk, vanilla, some cornstarch that you mix with water, sugar, and a little bit of salt. Bring everything up to a boil, mixing all the time. Once it starts boiling, you turn the heat to medium-low and allow everything to cook for another 2 to 4 minutes. You're going to transfer this to a big bowl or a deep dish plate and then cover it with cling foil, making sure that the foil touches the custard so no skin forms. Set this aside to cool down completely for about 1 hour. Now roll out the dough. I can't seem to find my rolling pin, so we're just gonna go with this. Roll it into a large circle that is around 27 centimeters. It should just be slightly bigger than your tart tin. Now this next part might be a bit tricky, but you can do it. Carefully, making sure that the dough neither sticks to your rolling pin nor the surface. Roll the dough backwards, and then you unfold it over top the pie tin. You technically only get one shot at this because the dough is likely to break. So if this doesn't work, you can just reshape everything, re-roll the dough, re-chill if necessary, but you could also just take bits and pieces of dough and stick it into the pie tin. My attempt covered just enough for me to not do it again, so I was happy with this and just ended up fixing the remaining bits with my hands. I'm also smoothing out some obvious imperfections using my fingers. There might be a small amount of dough left over which you can just make cookies out of. But yeah, place the crust into the freezer for about 15 minutes. In the meantime, preheat the oven to 180 degrees Celsius. Blind bake the crust now. So what you do is you add parchment paper on top of the crust, and then you add some sort of pie weight on top of that. Oftentimes that's dry beans or rice. I wanted to be quirky and I used pasta because Italy, but at least the pasta that I used, it's honestly not the most ideal thing to go for. It just doesn't pack as tightly as I would have liked. But anyway, bake your contraption for about 20 minutes, then remove the weight and the parchment paper and bake the pie for another 10 to 12 minutes or until lightly golden brown. Onto the peaches. Bring some water and some sugar up to a boil. Meanwhile, cut the peaches into slices and let them simmer for about 2 minutes, making sure that they don't become too soft. Last but not least, put together some whipped cream by, whipping up the cream and some powdered sugar. Now fold the cold custard carefully into the cream mix until nice and smooth. And then you can assemble the tart. You'll probably have quite a bit of cream left over, which can be served as a separate dessert. So you get 2 for 1 with some extra peaches. I ended up serving this with some fresh apricot juice, which has its own little moment in the movie. Call Me By Your Name is based on a book written by Andre Aciman, who, fun fact, has a cameo in the film as well. And it's directed by Luca Guadagnino, who's also the director of Bones and All and Challengers, which I'm gonna go see tonight for the second time, for research. Watching Challengers, to me, feels like taking 3 shots of espresso. The techno soundtrack only adds to that intensity. I really enjoyed it. And I think it's really cool how a movie can make me care about a sport that I've never given much thought about at all. When it comes to food in Challengers, I remember seeing quite a lot of fitness-related food, which was mostly placed in the background, nutrition powders, fresh fruit, supplements, and then the few foods that I remember being more so part of the story were the churros. And of course, there's also the bagel scene.
But I was one of the line judges at the Junior U.S. Open back.
Oh, you're hungry?
But anyway, I'm here to bake cakes today. I thought it would be fun to create a 3-layered banana churro cake, which of course also has to be green and resemble a giant tennis ball. Big shout out to Hannah, by the way, a subscriber who graciously let me borrow her tennis racket for this video. Mash 1 banana. Also make sure that the oven is preheated to 180 degrees Celsius and that you have 3 6-inch silicone cake molds ready to go. Transfer the mashed banana to the mixing bowl and also add the remaining wet ingredients. Added some sugar, mix everything until smooth before adding the flour, the baking powder, salt, and cinnamon. Mix this all up and divide the batter evenly between the 3 cake molds. Allow them to bake for 20 to 25 minutes. Let the cakes cool completely before adding any frosting. First, whip up some vegan butter together with a bit of vanilla and salt. Mix that for a good minute or 2. And then you add the powdered sugar bit by bit in about 4 to 6 stages, or until you have this nice, creamy, yet somewhat firm icing. Set aside a few tablespoons of the icing, put that into the fridge. And now the rest, we will color green. I definitely needed some reference photos here, because a tennis ball is more so a yellowy neon green. Also, the color will intensify once you let the cake sit for a bit, or at least in my experience. Now on to assembling and frosting the cake. First, I'm placing one of the layers on top of my cake stand, making sure to have a few sheets of parchment paper underneath it. In the background here, I am putting together some cinnamon sugar, just by mixing together cinnamon and sugar. But yeah, add about 2 to 3 tablespoons of frosting for your first layer. followed by 1 tablespoon of cinnamon sugar. This is going to give us this nice churro type crunch. Then you add the second layer, and then add the third layer. Then it's time to do your first coat of frosting, which does not have to be perfect. We just want to get a somewhat even thin layer going. And yeah, then do the next layer of frosting. I did a total of 4 layers, I believe. The remaining white frosting that we set aside earlier, I added into a plastic bag, cutting open one corner, and I tried to create some tennis ball patterns on here, which was a bit tricky because I wasn't using any proper piping equipment. But honestly, if you look at the cake from the right angle, I think it looks like a tennis ball. This might just be the silliest cake I have made on my channel so far, although maybe not. But I'm so very proud of it. I had a vision and it came true. Someone on Instagram also said that the 3 layers could symbolize the 3 main characters.
You see, I haven't really talked to anyone outside of my family all summer, but tomorrow is my first day of high school ever, and I need to turn things around.
I remember seeing Perks of Being a Wallflower for the first time when I was 14 and had just discovered unofficial streaming websites for myself. I do distinctly remember crying to it back then, but I also don't think I really understood what mental illness and PTSD were. So yeah, it was a whole lot more painful watching it this time around, but it's also a really beautiful film and I would highly recommend watching it. Anyway, the brownies that I'm going to be recreating from this film are not laced with anything because I would like to stay monetized. So it's just gonna be plain old brownies served with the milkshake that Sam makes for Charlie. While the oven is preheating to 180 degrees Celsius, I'm melting some vegan butter on the stove. I'm then transferring the butter to the mixing bowl together with non-dairy milk, vanilla, and applesauce. Giving that a quick mix before adding in the flour, sugar, cacao powder, baking powder, and salt. I scooped the batter into the cake tin and sprinkled it with lots and lots of chocolate chips. I mixed those in a bit and then put the whole thing into the oven. For the milkshake, I am simply following what I saw in the movie, which is ice cream, presumably vanilla, and milk. I'm also adding a pinch of salt to be fancy. I don't think this is the perfect consistency here. Probably should have gone for more ice cream and less milk. They also mentioned cherries being added, so I threw a couple of those in. In my opinion, the brownies are best served after having been in the fridge for 1 to 2 hours. Although you can also totally serve these warm, they will just be a bit fragile if you eat them immediately, which is what I did here. I cannot remember the last time I had a milkshake and a brownie together. It's definitely quite intense. When I asked people over on Instagram what their favorite comfort movie of all time was, mentioned the most, by far, was Pride and Prejudice.
I'm 27 years old. I've no money and no prospects. I'm already a burden to my parents. And I'm frightened.
There are a few versions of a filmed Pride and Prejudice adaptation out there, but I'm assuming that we're talking about the 2005 Keira Knightley version. I can't exactly pinpoint it. Maybe it's the beautiful, gloomy cottage aesthetics, but watching this movie for the first time the other day really made me want to bake bread. I wanted to recreate some of the sweet breads that we see appear in either this afternoon tea scene or in this breakfast proposal scene. So yeah, we're gonna be slightly deviating, if that is a word. I need to look that up. There we go. Hell yeah. Anyway, so yeah, we're gonna be slightly deviating from the original format of this video, but I hope that's okay. In a large mixing bowl, place some hot water, some cold to room temperature milk of choice, some sugar, and some melted vegan butter. Give this a quick mix and then sprinkle over a packet of dry active yeast. Put this somewhere warm for about 10 minutes. In the meantime, I grabbed a baking sheet and also greased a pie tin, pushing it to the side of the sheet. This will all make sense in a bit. To the now frothy yeast mixture, add the flour and salt. Mix everything with a wooden spoon until it roughly comes together and then transfer this mix to your surface, possibly adding a bit more flour if necessary, kneading everything for about 5 minutes. It helps to have oiled hands and a floured surface. This is optional, but I am cutting the dough in half and adding raisins to one half of it. Then I'm letting each piece of dough rest in their designated bowl for about an hour, someplace warm again. Once they're almost doubled in size, I am cutting one part into 4 to then 6 pieces. I said 4 to 6 because I needed a bit more extra dough here to fill up the entirety of the tin. Yeah, so I cut off a bit more from the other half. And then the remaining bit of dough I turned into 2 little braided breads. So each half you cut into 3s, shaping them into long, thick strings. And then you pinch them together at the top and braid them like you would hair. Let everything rise on the counter for another 15 to 30 minutes. Towards the end, preheat the oven to 180 degrees. Now to give the bread some color, I mixed together some oat milk and syrup and brushing the tops with that. For my little tea party spread, I also made some Earl Grey tea. And then remember, I had some pie crust left over from the Call Me By Your Name recipe, and I turned that into little biscuits. I displayed some of the brownies here as well, which I know is not historically or geographically accurate for like a Regency era afternoon tea, but that's not what I was going for anyway. I was going for vibes first. Yeah. The buns turned out incredibly fluffy. They should be served right away though, or at least eaten within a couple of hours. That is all the recipes I have for today. Let me know how you like this video in the comments. If you have a second, give it a thumbs up and tell me, do you want to see more videos like this? I sometimes need to make videos like this for my mental health. I want to see your recreations over on Instagram as well. I would love to be tagged in some peach tart pictures. Also, maybe double check if you're subscribed. And if you aren't, bye. And thank you to Squarespace for sponsoring this video. Squarespace is an all-in-one platform designed to help you build and grow your online brand and business. Start by creating a new website. Simply choose one of their many beautifully designed website templates, or start from scratch with a blank slate page, if that's what you prefer. Also use Squarespace to create a fitting new logo and put together a matching newsletter to get your message and products out there and to keep your followers and clients up to date. If you need any extra help, don't hesitate to ask their 24/7 award-winning customer service. Get started today. Simply go to squarespace.com/MinaRome and use the offer code MinaRome to get 10% off your first purchase of a new site or domain.